Great.
Okay, great.
Okay, you are live.
Great. Okay, thank you. So we're ready to go. I call this meeting to order. Due to the provisions of the governor's executive orders in -25-20 and in 29-20, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act and the order of health officers of the Sonoma County to shelter in place to minimize the spread of COVID-19. The Art and Public Places Committee will be conducting today's meeting in virtual settings using Zoom webinar. Committee members and staff are participating from remote locations and are practicing appropriate social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting as noted on the city's website and as noted on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak during any of the items, public comment, or during our public hearing items will be able to do so by raising their hand and will be given the ability to address the committee. The recording secretary will take roll call.
Please let the record reflect that all committee members, with the exception of Nathan Azadirian and Monica Bryant, are present.
Great. Thank you. Next up on the agenda is public comment. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please select the raise hand button. If you are dialing in via telephone, please press 9 to raise your hand. Each speaker has 3 minutes. A countdown timer will appear for the convenience of the speaker and viewers. Please make sure to mute yourself when you're invited to do so. The microphone will be muted at the end of the countdown. Do we have any comments from the public who wish to?
We have no comments at this time.
Okay. Then let's go on to the scheduled items. 4.1, Public Art Programs Strategic Planning.
Thank you,
Tara,
Lisa.
yes.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I'll just briefly introduce this item. Nice to see all of you. Thank you for making this a priority in your schedule to attend a special meeting to discuss the strategic planning for the Art and Public Places program and committee. As you remember back at the end of last year, I believe, during our annual planning discussions, we talked about undertaking some strategic planning for the public art program. And at that time, we had identified Third Plateau as a consultant team we wanted to work with and brought them on board early in 2020 to start that process. And we have been working with them since then through some changes to our scope and through a crisis emerging with COVID and other such challenges, plus fires and anything else you want to throw in the boat. But we have been continuing to work towards our main goal of producing a strategic plan for the public art program. And Jeannie and the team who's on this call today will be facilitating a conversation with you about program goals as well as mission and vision outlines for the program. And they're going to start with some background into what research and planning has been done to date, working with various subcommittees or steering committees for different components of the project, as well as what outreach they've done to the arts community and other stakeholders. So this project, I believe, is really at a good time, even though it's an odd time, unusual circumstances. We're really trying to see this as an opportunity to look really holistically at the public art program at its place within the city of Santa Rosa and within the community of Santa Rosa itself, and put everything out on the table in terms of what works and what doesn't, and what can we change to see what we want in the public art program. So with that, I would like to introduce Jeannie Howell. She's our project manager for this project. And then the rest of the Third Plateau team, welcome. Thank you for being here today. And I'll turn it over to you, Jeannie.
Thanks, Tara. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeannie Howell. Like Tara mentioned, some of those faces are very familiar. I'm a director here at Third Plateau, social impact strategy firm that's been working with Tara and the public art program and the various committees on the work that we've been doing throughout the year. I'm going to have our team introduce themselves, and I'll let them do that themselves, name, title, what your role on this project moving forward. Madeline, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Madeline Labasco, and I'm a researcher with the Third Plateau team. And my role has mainly been leading the learning phases of this project, which we'll talk about a little bit shortly, but really learning to make sure we're informing those strategic planning conversations and ultimately decision-making.
Madeline. Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jonathan Kaufman. I'm one of the co-founders and principals here at Third Plateau. And I've been a sort of a strategic advisor throughout this process. Moving forward, I'm going to be working very closely with Alex and Maya to really help draft these documents and get them to a final place for everybody so we can start to move towards implementation. I'm really excited. Thanks again for having us here.
Thanks, Jonathan. Alex.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Tagavian, and I'm a partner with Capital Impact. We are in some ways, a sister organization to Third Plateau, and we have expertise in state and local government and strategies to help further promising programs and ideas. So much like Jonathan, my role in this project has been that of a strategic advisor and helping to shape the final deliverables for the committee.
And Maya, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Maya Kageyama. I'm a director at Third Plateau. My background is in organizational development and support to nonprofits, as well as city and state government and health departments. I grew up actually in Ukiah doing a lot of arts and performing arts, and my family now lives in Santa Rosa, so I'm actually really excited to be working with you all on this.
Thanks, Maya. Great. Well, we're all super excited to be here with you. We have a lot to cover, so we're going to dive right in. Essentially, this meeting is about really getting you all up to speed on the work that has been done this year. We really want to listen to your insights and feedback on some of the pieces that we have been working on with the steering committee that's been working on the strategic plan. And then explore some ideas, some purpose and role in the future of this committee as it relates to the strategic plan and the goals that we are starting to draft for the plan. I'm going to share my screen really quick to give you a visual of the process that we have gone through. Give me just a moment here. And so this really kind of outlines where we started and where we're at now. So way back in the beginning of the year, we started with pre-planning, understanding that we were going through a strategic planning process. And that's really about, scoping the project, creating the committee, and really just kind of putting all the nuts and bolts together with the project planning and the scheduling. Then we moved into sort of the phase one of planning, which is the learning phase. Madeline's actually going to take you through quickly some of the key learnings from that phase. But that really encompasses all of the interviews we did, the desk research, surveys, analysis, and the assessments that we did around the needs of the community and of the program. Between the pre-planning and the phase one is what Tara mentioned, was when COVID hit and things started to take a slightly different approach, which was we needed to come up with some different ideas around crisis management, right? To respond to the needs of the community and come up with some different strategies and tactics to help with that response. So we rescoped the project and we went about doing some crisis management planning with the program. And that encased a crisis management committee that was formed. We did a workshop with that committee. We did a needs assessment around COVID and around the crisis and the needs in the community. And we did some different scenario and contingency planning within that workshop. That produced a response plan that encompasses a couple different strategies that can be implemented within the coming 6 months moving into 2021. That took us all the way to the end of September, which then brings us to October through December, which is really focusing back on that longer term strategies, which is the strategic planning piece. So we have already conducted a planning retreat with the committee. And now we're kind of in that phase where we're still trying to gather additional information from the stakeholders that are going to be not only a part of this plan, but implementing pieces of it, which is where this committee really comes in. So we're going to be sharing some information with you today around drafting the vision, the mission, and something called the theory of change, which Jonathan's going to take you through. And also having you take a look at the 2-year goals that are starting to be sort of formed from some of the conversations we've already had. And this kind of just basically breaks down the strategic planning piece that I kind of just went over. But really, this is where we're at right now, which is the ideation phase. After that, as Jonathan mentioned, this is really about drafting the plan all the way to the end of the year, really getting a little into the nitty gritty about implementation, how all these pieces work together, and continue to gain feedback on that piece as well. Madeline, would you like to go over the research overview that's in the packet for the committee and talk about that process that we went through?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Jeannie. Really to kind of better understand that current reality and desired future, as Jeannie mentioned, we tried to answer those questions by carrying out 3 different levels of learning and really research. And so we actually looked at both the field level, the user level, and the organizational level, trying to make sure we were making informed decisions and really informing those conversations. So at the field level, we really sought out what we could learn from the public art field, conducting secondary web-based desk research on the impacts of public art paradigms and goals, as well as common challenges with municipal art programs. We also did some research on other cities and their innovative approaches, seeing what lessons we could learn and take into consideration when looking at our own approach. At the user level, we really wanted to develop a better understanding of the users of public art in the city of Santa Rosa and took quite a broad lens to that potential user base. Much of our learning was done through interviews. We conducted about 19 interviews with artists, art organizations, the general public, and core organizational staff within the city program. We also carried out a survey for Santa Rosa area creatives specifically that received more than 100 responses and took a lot of great insights from that survey as well. Lastly, at the organization level, we really took a look at identifying structural and operational needs and opportunities to best support public arts from the city. So we did an additional 11 interviews with stakeholders from the city's public art network, really focusing in on current strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which, as Jeannie mentioned, throughout this timeframe certainly evolved, and we considered that evolving landscape looking forward. The packet provided gives some key takeaways, but there's just a few that I'd like to mention quickly and just provide a brief overview of. One of our biggest findings was that, the city of Santa Rosa takes a pretty traditional public art or art in public places approach, but other public art paradigms also present really unique opportunities to both create community identity and foster development. These can include creative placemaking, creative economies, just to name a few, but often these approaches really focus on both social and economic impacts for the city as a whole, to include the general public and artists. And these really are successful because they're often driven by increased community engagement. And we saw an opportunity for the city of Santa Rosa there to potentially really get into that engagement, get a better understanding of community needs, with opportunities to really increase strategic collaboration across the board, both with arts organizations and artists. Additionally, through many of our conversations, as well as our survey, it became clear that the creative community in the area is vast and varied, and that there's really an opportunity to make sure it's inclusive, both of the varied art forms and of community that's really representative of that larger community. In addition to making it more inclusive, there's definitely an opportunity to decrease some red tape when possible, acknowledging that that's not always the case, but something to be mindful of in this moment. And lastly, there was really an opportunity that in this moment came through many conversations of art as such a powerful connector and unifier, and something so important to lean into in these tumultuous times. And it was underscored, the public art program's unique positioning in the city within planning and economic development, and really the great opportunity that lies there in this kind of rebuilding phase where we're responding to these multiple crises in this moment in time. The committee really engaged with this information, as Jeannie mentioned, both in the response workshop and our strategic retreat, bringing their unique perspectives and experiences. We had dynamic conversation, which really helped inform our draft mission, vision, and goals that we'll talk about shortly. But before I turn it over to Jonathan, just wanted to pause and see if there's any questions on any of those initial findings before we jump into what kind of they led to as a result so far.
Thanks, Madeline.
It looks like Nina, you had a question?
Yeah, can you identify the stakeholders? Is this just the visual arts community or more diverse arts?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. We went more broadly than visual arts. We definitely acknowledged that historically a lot of the arts in the city of Santa Rosa focused on visual arts, and that came up in many of the conversations we had. But of the artists we spoke with, a number of them were involved in other art forms, and the surveys were definitely more broad. We had a number of people in performing arts, literature, and arts education as well in a broad sense. So it wasn't limited to visual arts, but that definitely came up as a common theme that often is the first thing that's thought of within the community.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, as we shift to more of a discussion that Jonathan's going to lead us through, I quickly just wanted to mention, really how we think about strategic planning versus maybe you've done strategic planning with other organizations or, in your own lines of business. We really seek to cultivate a space with the right people, the right information, and the right environment, so that really strong ideas emerge. And you're best supported to realize that vision for the public art program here. We're not here to tell you your strategy. We're here to enable you to shape your own future. So the key questions that have really driven this process have been, what is our current reality, which Madeline and the research team really dug into. And then we talk about what is our ideal, what's their desired future? What is the state which we're trying to get to? And how do we bridge that gap between our current reality and our desired future? And that's really what the strategic planning piece is all about. So with that, I'd love to turn this over to Jonathan, who's going to talk you through some of the pieces in your packet and go through a discussion.
Great, thank you, Jeannie. So great strategic planning requires a very strong foundation of a couple of things. The first one is a vision. And a vision statement is really about what's the reality we want to be living in, not what we currently are living in, and not some incremental improvement on the current reality, but actually taking a step back and asking, what are we trying to build in Santa Rosa? What do we want to see in our community? It does not need to be perfectly unique to us. We likely share that vision with lots of other organizations and some government agencies. But it really is our North Star of what we're trying to strive for. our mission statement is incredibly unique to us. And that does need to be our unique contribution to creating that vision. So if you think of the vision statement as the puzzle that everybody collectively in Santa Rosa is trying to build, our mission statement represents the unique puzzle piece or puzzle pieces we're bringing to that. And so we want to make sure that that's what anchors our strategic planning efforts, understanding where are we trying to go and what do we think our unique strength and value add is to that discussion. And from there, we can start to think about what are some goals for the next couple of years to make progress towards building that puzzle. So in your packet, you've got some draft mission and vision statements. I'm going to share my screen so we can make sure that we're all looking at the same thing and together here. So you should be able to see my screen now. And this is where we're going to start today. Let's start with our vision statement. And we've been working with the Strategic Planning Committee to start to think of, okay, what are some options of what we can be looking at? And today, what we'd really love to do from the Public Arts, from the Art and Public Places Committee here, is to get feedback and input about what's resonating, what's not resonating, so that we can continue this iterative process of constantly drafting better and better versions, eventually landing at a final vision statement, mission statement, and an eventual strategic plan. So we've got 3 options that we're putting in front of you today for some reaction on vision. So option 1, an empowered and inclusive Santa Rosa community connected through the power of art. Option 2, a Santa Rosa where creative and cultural expression is embedded into the fabric of our community. And option 3, we envision a Santa Rosa where public art expression cultivates an inclusive sense of place and community for all. To be very clear, you do not need to just pick one of these and that's the end of the conversation. This is trying to have a starting place for it. We can mix and match these. We can create option 4, 5, 6, and 7 if you would like. But I would love to start and hear from committee members. From these 3 options, what resonates with you? What, when you read it or when you hear it, you think to yourself, yes, that's the reality we're trying to build here.
I will go ahead and start if no one else is. I had a couple. Option 1, I felt it was to the point and it had a solid active message. This message, it was present. Option 2, it didn't sit with me that well. Option 3, I'm just reading my notes here. This option was more as if it was a possibility that we're reaching out to it, although it didn't feel so concrete.
That's really, I would love, would you mind unpacking some of those comments a little bit? When you said option 1 felt very present, can you figure out what in there is making you react that way?
Because it's saying what you are rather than looking forward to the future, what we're grasping for. Where I feel number 3 is more kind of we're grasping to be something, but we're just, and we're not there. I get that we're not, but it's more or less telling us the obvious. So I don't know if that explains or if I'm not. How else can I put this? Let me see.
No, I think that's really helpful to hear. It's good to hear your very natural reactions to these. And what I want to make sure that we're hearing and understanding in your comments is I want to make sure that it's like the language is really resonating with you, and I want to make sure we're not getting too hung up on syntax of something. So option 3, for example, like the structure of it is fundamentally different, right? We envision a Santa Rosa as opposed to just a Santa Rosa where public art expression, da-da-da-da-da. And so what it sounds like though is the language in the first one is really describing the community you want to be living in. as opposed to the other ones feel a little bit more disconnected and a little bit more removed.
Correct.
Is that fair?
Yes, that is.
I would like
That's-
to contribute that I liked option 2 as a more active idea of creativity and cultural expression is part of our world here. So I was drawn to that one.
Really appreciate that reflection. There's some really there's something I see when I read these, I think I see a real difference in option 1 and option 2. Of option 1 is talking about the sort of the result of the art, talking about this empowered and inclusive community. Option 2 talks a little bit more about the art itself, it's about creativity and cultural expression. Obviously, both of those are very desired and really great things, but interesting to hear which one you're drawn to, and it feels like there's a little bit more meat about the what on option 2, and I think a little bit more meat around the why in option 1. Are you reading them the same way, Member Bryant?
Yes, that makes sense to describe the difference.
That's really helpful.
Looks like Melanie had a comment next.
I was going to say, how are we doing this? I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused. Are we just, normally our chair acknowledges us? Are we just giving our comments?
Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I think in the context of this item, and to have a conversation where people can join in and share their ideas, I would suggest, it's up to you, Chair Puentes, I would suggest that that as long as you're raising your hand to be recognized and not everyone's talking at once, that you don't necessarily have to go through the chair, but that is up to the chair.
Since they are asking the questions, I was letting them go ahead. And I can go ahead and let them go ahead, just because they're the ones who are asking the questions and trying to get as much feedback as possible, if that's okay.
I don't have any objections to that. I could use Tara or someone else if you can help flag when hands are raised, since I can't see everybody at the same time I'm sharing my screen, but I'm fine with that approach. So then in that spirit, is there someone who
Melanie?
was about to weigh in? Melanie? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. It's interesting. I actually had a very different response. Number 3 just really jumped out at me. And I think it was because of a couple of words, an exclusive sense of place, which made me just think about, we don't really have such a diverse community, but it's important to make sure that everybody feels like they belong. And that number 3 sort of says that to me. And it could just be that word, the inclusive sense of place and community for all. So that everybody knows no matter what, and maybe I'm reading into this, no matter what kind of art they're bringing, we want to see it, and it's welcome.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And especially calling out a specific phrase there that's really resonating with you is really helpful. Other thoughts about what's resonating with you in these first 3 options?
I had another.
Yeah, it looks like Nina had her hand up.
Okay.
Lisa, if that's
Nina.
okay.
Oh, absolutely.
So there's aspects of all 3 of these that appeal to me. If I was to pick one, I would pick option 3, but I would attempt to include some things from both 1 and 2. 1, I like the idea of empowered. Inclusive is also worded in option 3. And option 2, the idea where creative and cultural expression is embedded into the fabric of our community. The word that's not in here is identity. And I think that that can be inferred possibly in option 2. So the limitation of option 3, it says where public art expression, it cultivates blah, 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 just the phrase public art expression. So is it possible to include, when you say creative and cultural expression is embedded into the fabric of the community, I think of anybody from school children to middle age to older age, everybody having a sense of identity through the art that's created here in the individual and public and private sphere, all of it together, that the public art expression is just one of them, and it evolves from the community's identity. But are we to make this vision just for the public art, or are we talking also about the community expression?
I'm happy to share my thinking, but all of your answers to that question, I think, will be very telling. As a strategist, I would encourage us to think about the role that public art plays and the vision for what we are, like the to what end side of public art, right? There's we're here because there's value in art itself, and all of that expression, and what it can do and what it draws out from people and how it brings people together, right? Both of those things are really critical. So I think that's the lens that I would approach this, as opposed to a vision statement that is really just about the Santa Rosa in general, and could apply to any department within the city. I think is going to be a lot less meaningful for us.
So I would like to add then to option 3, a sense of cultivates a sense of belonging and identity.
I like that. That's really helpful. Thank you very much. I think there was someone else who was about to jump in, but I can't see which hands are raised.
This is Jeff.
That looks like Jeff.
Yeah, I was hoping to jump in here. So I think it's really interesting to hear individual options expressed as being preferable. And then Nina, really appreciated your comments, because I was thinking a very similar thing, that there are aspects of all 3 that I think are on target, but none of the options actually is inclusive enough to say it all in like one succinct vision statement. And so I've been looking at these thinking, well, how do you mix and match these words? And one of the things that occurs to me is that these words like inclusive, sense of place, creative and cultural expression embedded somehow in our community. All of these are I think, great aspirational philosophies about, a vision is sort of an aspirational philosophy for a strategic plan. So I want it to be active and present and now, but I also think it should be aspirational for the future. What are we trying to get to? So I started to mix and match the language here a little bit, and I'm thinking it in my mind, it could be something like we envision a Santa Rosa where public art inspires creative and cultural expression, and to create an inclusive sense of place and community, or things like something like that, where we can sort of cobble together the best parts of each of these options.
That's really helpful. To save us all a headache, we're not going to try to wordsmith this to a final version together, because I like you all too much to try to put you through that. But that's really helpful to hear some specific language in here that's really resonating with you from a couple of these ones. And I'm seeing lots of heads nodding as we're trying to blend some of these together. Does anybody else have an aspect of this that they want to make sure or would love to see in the final version, either a specific word or phrase in these options, or that's not in these options that you would really like to see in that final version?
Kristen?
I wanted to second Nathan's comments about
Jeff's comments.
as a
Sorry.
Jeff's comments about blending an aspirational philosophy with a call to action. And that's really what I find to be most powerful in a vision statement, is as a call to action as well. And I think including the word inspires a community. I think that's a really powerful way to think about it. So I would encourage adding an action verb in there to bring home the aspirational philosophy and the feel goods.
Yeah, I really like that. And that using a word like inspire also helps connect the value of art for art's sake, and also what art can then produce and what it can lead to. I think a word like inspire hits on both of those notes in really exciting ways. That's definitely worth playing with. Any other final thoughts on the vision statements here before we have a similar conversation about mission statements? Okay, well, let's keep moving. So again, the vision statement is about this, the reality we're striving towards, right? The reality we want for our community, but it's likely several years, if some of these are going to be good vision statements are often a generation or two into the future, right? It's going to require a lot to build towards what we're trying to get to. A mission statement takes that big picture puzzle and says, okay, for that to happen, a lot of things are going to have to go right from a lot of different players. Us, as the public art, here is the puzzle piece, the unique piece we can contribute to making that vision a reality. So it's very similar. We've got 3 options here of just a place to start the conversation. We'd love your input. So this is about the unique puzzle piece we bring to the table to help build that vision statement we just discussed. So option 1, the public art program amplifies community voice and enables diverse and culturally relevant expressions of art into community spaces. Option 2, Santa Rosa's public art program champions artistic expression through community-based strategies that infuse an array of art experiences into public spaces. Option 3, Santa Rosa's public art program fosters public art experiences that reflect the rich culture and history of its community. So again, we are not wed to these 3. We are happy to mix and match or happy to go an entirely different route, but really just want your input. As you read through these, what resonates with you and what doesn't? As you think about the unique contribution that we make towards that vision.
I see Monica's hand up. Go ahead. Oh, you're unmuted. Or I should say you're muted.
Okay.
Thanks.
In this one too, I am drawn to option 2 because of the idea of championing artistic expression through community-based strategies. I just feel like the arts really need to be supported and advocated to grow. It's not just a matter of recognizing creativity and works of creativity in the community. But I thought that was important that it talks about that too.
Right, this idea of championing the arts. You think about our unique contribution. I think it's a fairly easy argument to say the public art program is best positioned to actually do that championing, right? That's a really easy, unique contribution we can make. What else resonates or doesn't resonate for members?
Jeff and then Nina.
Yeah, so I think there are aspects of all of these options that that resonate with me, but there's one fundamental question that comes to mind that none of these addresses. And in my mind, my experience with public art is that sometimes, as much as you want public art to draw the community together, to be a reflection of the sort of the cultural makeup of your community, that so that people feel like it's there for them. Sometimes you want public art, depending on its location and the purpose of the project, to do something maybe a bit more to help define a place as a distinctly unique place that would be, let's say, a destination that would draw people. Santa Rosa is the kind of city that definitely has to think about its own local population and being inclusive, but it's also sitting geographically and economically in a region that hopefully post-pandemic tourism, the wine and hops industries and the arts and culture and all of these things that make Sonoma County a wonderful destination, that Santa Rosa can help position itself at the center of not only Sonoma County life, but maybe as a destination for visitors. So I can imagine certain locations where the public art project might do more, or it may have a different purpose than what is expressed in any one of these options. And so I find myself thinking about, well, what really is the mission of our committee and of the public art program? Is it only to champion local artistic expression, community-based strategies, reflecting the culture and history of our community, or are these projects sometimes going to do to aspire to be something more in order to be maybe symbolic of as a cultural beacon to beyond our particular city or county? So if we can define what our purpose is in a way that allows for us to be both local and more expansive in what we're trying to accomplish, then at least in my mind, I'd like to see whatever option we go with in the mission to allow for maybe that creation of a sense of place or a destination as defined by public art to be part of what we're trying to accomplish.
And I think that's really profound, and that comment resonates with me a lot. I want to make sure I'm hearing some of this accurately, so I would like to sort of recap some of this, and you can let me know where I went off course and how to strengthen that.
Hey, I'm thinking off the top of my head, so.
No, this is great. This is great. So what I'm hearing here is a couple of things. One is that there's a concept of placemaking that is missing from these mission statements. The idea of not just having an art experience, but genuinely having art help define what that space is and how it's used and what it does and how it inspires or connects and all of that, that it's beyond just the expression. But the expression is, maybe that's where it becomes a little bit more local, right? It's helping local artists to express, and then it's using local and broader artists to help placemake. And maybe that's where that dynamic actually takes some root, where we can have different strategies for both local and for external artists. That's what I'm hearing, at least in your description.
Yeah, I think that helps more. I think it articulates what I'm trying to say more succinctly. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think Nina had your hand up a while back. If you want to go ahead.
Yeah. So I really like the comments both that Jeff and Jonathan just made. First of all, I agree also again that there's aspects of all three of the options that are good. I want to say this before I forget it, because the term cultural, was it cultural beacon that you said, Jeff?
It might have been destination, but yeah,
use
something like that.
You used the word beacon, and I mean, overall, I like option 2, except that it's completely composed of prepositional phrases and it doesn't read right. If you took option 3, Santa Rosa's public art program fosters public art experiences that reflect the rich culture and history of its community. And if you added something about and towards the future, like a cultural beacon, then adding the future into option 3 would be good. And adding the idea of placemaking, if you can put all of that together.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think there is an angle to do this relatively seamlessly and owning where we're housed within the city, right? This is parts of this about economic development, which I think can also drive some of those aspects of placemaking and being that beacon and just taking a slightly, taking the arts approach to what that can look like. I think this is really interesting. Thank you.
I think, Kristen, you had your hand up as well?
I did, yes. I had a thought to add to the placemaking conversation. The preposition, option 2, aside from the grammatical structure of it, I really like the phrase community-based strategies, for the point that Jonathan was just talking about, has within the city structure opportunities. And I think placemaking has a huge hand in influencing how artistic opportunities can create sense of bold position to take with our mission statement. And so I would very much encourage adding in a theme of placemaking.
Did we just lose Kristen there a few times, or is it just me?
Yes,
Yeah,
we did.
Okay, we did.
I was going to ask that because I'm on Safari and I probably should have gone on Google Prime, and I was wondering if it was my problem.
So we lost you. You were in and out the whole entire time. Sorry about that, Kristen. Can you repeat?
Oh.
Yeah, you cut out a little bit. The things that I heard was that you liked the community-based strategies being included in there, but that the focus or incorporation of placemaking, you would encourage that. But please fill in what we missed, because those were the 2 main things I heard.
Sure. So I was just echoing Jonathan's statement about the public art being part of planning and economic development, and how including in the statement of community-based strategies opens up for flexibility and opportunity for placemaking. And I think that would be a strong component to our mission statement.
Great, thank you.
Looks like Melanie.
Yeah, I just a word of caution that we don't want to make our mission statement seem as though we're looking for particular places which can be gathering points or beacons and others that cannot, because there is already a impression that there are art deserts in Santa Rosa. And so we just need to be careful about what we're including in the mission statement so that it's not construed as further alienating some communities and building up others.
Thank you for flagging that. I really appreciate it. It's actually a great segue to talk about some of the goals about where we're going. So I'm going to skip the theory of change. Sorry while you get dizzy as I scroll through here, and come down to these draft goals. So this is what the strategic planning committee current ideas are of where we can focus over the next couple of years. And so I wanted to share these again, just to get some input about what's resonating with you and what's not. So we talked about the vision being the big high level, what we're striving towards. These goals getting to articulate what progress can we start to make towards that vision, and where do we want to focus our efforts. So the committee's got 4 goals currently in draft form. Goal 1, prioritize diverse voices within the programming, process, outreach, and infrastructure of the public art program. So that's one of the aspects that Melanie was just flagging there to some extent. Goal 2, infuse art into all city areas and recruit community leaders to champion arts programming, again, attacking some of the art deserts. Goal 3, increase awareness and familiarity with the public art program and the Arts in Public Places Committee. And goal 4, identify and secure bigger funding streams with more flexibility and less restrictions, or fewer restrictions. So we'd love, just again, similar to what we've done, if feedback about if this is where the public art program focuses its energy for the next couple of years. What do you like about this? What do you not like? What do you think might be missing?
Oh, Jeff, I see your hand up.
Thanks. Right off the bat, I think what's missing is actually having a goal that has to do with the with projects, with actual public art projects, to approve and move forward on the implementation of projects that that would support the mission. Because it's interesting, I kind of like all of these goals, but then it's like, yeah, but none of them actually address what I think we're here to do, which is to actually put some projects out there, get some proposals back, and actually put some art out into public spaces.
Just to be clear, so that's helpful to hear. So I think the intention behind goal 1 and goal 2 are to do exactly that. But it's clearly not coming through as you're reading it and your reactions to it. You're seeing the absence of that.
Right. I mean, if goal 2 were worded instead of infuse art into all city areas, or maybe it would be infuse art into all city areas by through public art placement and recruit community leaders to champion, or something like that. But I'd like to see some specific language about the actual process of public art placement.
Okay, thank you. Other reactions about what you like or don't like, or what you think might be missing?
Yeah, a thought. Am I audible?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Hi, Nathan. Go ahead.
Hey, one of the things that I think is most exciting about this committee is that it's sort of on the verge of being integrated within or into the planning committee. That's correct? Yeah. And that sort of stepping out of kind of neoliberal framework of art as a kind of way of decorating the urban fabric, and into a scenario where it is kind of more integrated into how cities are conceived of and how urban planning is organized, and kind of really forming as a kind of means to connect people with the decisions that are being made about the spaces that they live in. And I don't know how to put that in a more succinct way. But that's kind of what I'm excited about being here. And I think there might be a way to sort of highlight that within this set of goals.
Just to make sure I understand that comment fully, it sounds like what excites you is that there's a real focus on a healthy, engaging process by which public art comes to be and how it takes root, as opposed to, sort of cherry picking installations, and it's the actual product itself. And getting to actually focus on having a healthier, more inclusive process itself is exciting for you.
Which is what culture is, essentially, right?
I won't fight you on that one. I agree full-heartedly.
Yeah. So it's like how is everyone who's living here sort of included in the process of conceiving of and implementing public art projects?
Great, thank you. I'm cognizant of time. We've got a couple other conversations we want to have. Any other final comments about what you like or don't like about these draft goals?
I'll just jump in really quick, and I noticed 3 key goals over the next 3 years, but I see 4 goals.
Yes, that's an easy one to fix. We'll credit you with that one. You get a footnote and everything.
Just saw that.
Monica, did you have your hand up?
Well, I did. I couldn't. I don't see the last speaker, the one who was talking. I didn't.
That's
see.
Nathan Azadarian. It doesn't look like he has his camera on, but he's on the call.
Okay.
Oh, there he is.
Okay. Hi, Nathan.
You know what? I did have another comment, and I'm not interrupting anyone, am I? Okay, because I can't see everybody when I'm reading my notes and stuff. So when I know we're working towards 3 of these goals, and we have 4 on here. My question is, which goals rely on other goals? Like, for instance, number 4 will probably help facilitate definitely a few of those goals, if not all. So when we're looking at having 3, which ones do we have to have, or which ones are needed to make the other ones possible?
Sorry, just to clarify, it's a typo at the top. We don't need to think of, we have to winnow this down to 3. We can, that's a typo at the top, that we need 3 goals. I would, as a strategist, I think 3 to 5 goals is about right. And I really like when organizations, just looking at all of the different types of organizations we work with, I always think it's really, really smart to have one of your strategic plan goals be entirely internally focused about how we operate better. And it's clear from the conversations that a lot of it is around where our funding is coming from and what's flexible versus not. And I think that was the area where the committee saw an opportunity to unlock more potential. I agree with you. That's going to fuel all of the other goals. Absolutely. Yeah, sorry about that typo on here.
No worries.
Okay.
Nina had her hand up.
Yeah, I just have one thought on goal 1. Prioritize diverse voices, and I would like to add and robust participation within the rest of that.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop screen share for a second. So really, really, really helpful. Great strategic planning is iterative in nature. And so thank you all for engaging in some kind of some softer clay and wet material here to actually engage and help shape it about where you think it needs to go next. And we'll keep working with the strategic planning committee to continually refine this language and get it closer and closer and closer to where we really want to be. This input is phenomenally helpful in that effort. So thank you all very much. We're going to shift in the time we've got remaining to talk about this committee and how this committee plays a role in helping advance this larger agenda. So I'm going to turn it over to Alex to walk us through the next portion together.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, perfect. So as Jonathan mentioned, what we'd like you to do now is hold up a mirror in some regard and think about the purpose and role of this committee in relation to vision, mission, and strategy that we just walked you through. And this can be challenging in some ways because, particularly as a component of a city system, it's hard to step out of that world and leverage this unique moment to reimagine what your role might be. And so I want to push you a little bit to try to think as creatively as possible. There's no wrong answers here, but it certainly is welcome. We would welcome you to test some assumptions around your current role, and then how might that be redefined in order to advance the goals and mission that were, at least the draft that was just articulated. And there's a lot of different ways you might be thinking about this, and even just scanning the goals we looked at moments ago, there is a decision-making function currently. There could be a fund development, fundraising component, cultivating champions. And then there's also aspects that maybe outside of the purview of the committee, but might make perfect sense for staff to be the lead in driving. So there's a lot of different ways you might consider this. And to kick us off, what I want to do is give you a minute of self-reflection. Hopefully you have either a pad and pencil in front of you or your laptop, and maybe just jot down or sketch your initial ideas that come to mind individually as it relates to the purpose and role of the APPC. And then I'll let you know when a minute is up, and then I would invite you then to share and discuss that reflection so that we can start to workshop how we as a group might envision that role remaining the same and possibly changing going forward. Any questions about that before I turn you loose to do some sketching? All right, so go ahead and take a minute and I'll let you know when the time is up. All right. So would anybody like to share your initial thoughts and kick off our conversation?
Nina?
So I'd like to give a little bit of historical perspective. I think I've been on this committee for 8 years. And it was a larger committee until, Tara, you tell me how many years ago, since we did the public art program.
The master plan and the policy changes that came out of that took place in 2016, 17.
When I first came on the Art and Public Places Committee, it was a much larger group. There were 2 city council members and a lot of people were representing other city boards and commissions, such as Design Review, Cultural Heritage Board, Board of Community Services, and then there were some at-large members. And now we've transitioned to a fewer members and not having strict representation from our cross-representation from these other committee boards and commissions. And we're getting even more away from that as we transition into all district appointments that are political appointments. So I feel the loss of not having members from specifically Design Review and the Cultural Heritage Board. So the statements that we make or promote regarding our composition, I think should take into account where we've been and answer the question where we're going. Because if it's all district appointments, we could see more political appointments without people representing specific bodies or populations within our community.
Yeah, thank you for that. That context certainly helps. And even about 10 minutes ago, the comment that was made by one of your colleagues related to this committee shifting into, was it the Planning Commission? Is there a consolidation that's happening? Did I understand that right?
I think they were talking about the fact that Art and Public Places Committee used to be housed in Park and Rec. And then when it changed to be part of Economic Development, it's a great move. And within the arts community, we talked a lot about, I've been a member of Art Trails for 35 years, and we talked about maybe 10 years ago about trying to making Sonoma County, because it's a county organization, as a cultural destination, and the potential for attracting, art tourists. So there's been a lot of change over the last 10 years. And I think that whenever we define where we're going, we should look at where we've been.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Monica and then Kristen.
I appreciate what Nina was saying. The only thing that I wrote down was, and I think it reflects sort of missing a larger body of participation in the Art and Public Places. And I was writing down invite more guests or I know we do that and people have been invited and people request to speak before us, but somehow in an honorarium kind of way, not paying, but honoring people by bringing their voices to our meetings by just inviting them. But that's just a thought.
So you see that, just to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, you see the role of the committee to be increasing engagement with the public by inviting them to participate in a conversation more proactively?
Yes. I mean, it could be burdensome and, complicated to include more voices, but taking an initiative to invite periodically people to attend seems like it might add some more vitality to the process.
Kristen, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you. Some notes that I wrote down, I think reflect a little bit of background about my position on the committee and why I was attracted to be part of these conversations. And I wrote down, encourage creative placemaking by navigating the city process. And something that I am really drawn to in my line of work, working more on the art in private developments. I have been on design development teams and working in a planning component to understand the nuts and bolts of who's involved and what board needs to, or official needs to approve each piece before something really comes to fruition. And so I really see education as part of our tenet, and really understanding or engaging in a dialogue where there is differentiation between art and private developments and public development. And that can often get misconstrued, what is public space and what is private, and not wanting to get too into that minutia. Or that divide. I think it's a big consideration for our committee to think about how we interact with other boards and commissions as well, and how we work within the framework. And educating that is something that I'm very passionate about. And I also, going off of that, another big role of art in public places is to celebrate opportunities along with our education. And those were kind of my 2 cents from our self-reflection.
Just can I ask a quick clarification? You mentioned both the words education and navigation. Are you seeing who is the end user of that role for the committee? Are you navigating the private sector through the city processes? Is it directed towards specific members of the community? Just so that we understand what is that role relative to the persons being served?
That's a great directing question. I get a little confused blurred between the parties that I work with. And I think that the end user is our community member who might not have the background or the knowledge of, the city council reviews this type of project or the planning commission reviews this type of project, but to have the confidence that the Art and Public Places Committee has this purview and has an understanding of what type of art and culture and celebration is meaningful is, and not to define that into too narrow of a category, but I think that is a big rallying part of this board, is to tie that process together.
It looks like I saw Jeff's hand up and then Lisa.
Yeah, this is a really interesting conversation. So the reflection on our role, maybe because I was still thinking in a vision and mission sort of context, what I wrote was, I guess, more aspirational in that vein. But what I'm thinking about is our role is to create a vision for public art and to conceive and implement projects that inspire and engage our community and create a sense of place. And Kristen, I think what you're talking about in terms of education, sort of my concept of engagement sort of is inclusive of that. So yeah, I think, and there were some comments earlier, I think Monica and Nina both are talking about bringing more, I guess, more voices to the table. And so I kind of like that idea that we would play a role of being maybe creating a platform through which, and I think we did this, for example, the Courthouse Square project that's currently underway, and I have the honor of being on that committee. We had a survey that got hundreds of responses, and so I think this is a really important part of the process, is that we have this role to bring people's voices and to understand what people are thinking about and what their responses are to art in public places. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking about. Oh, and one other thought, I think Nina mentioned about a cultural, sort of a cultural destination that Sonoma County would be sort of, elevated, I guess, in a way. And I certainly got a sense of that when I've only been here for 3 years, working as director of the museum for 3 years, but it's definitely part of the museum's vision, and when I talk to my colleagues who are directors of all of the other cultural organizations, I know individual artists and the cultural organizations are all thinking about how can we work together, how can we create an environment and an image outside of Sonoma County as well as within the county. And in our case, let's think about Santa Rosa in particular, that there's really culture here, that art, the arts, creativity, public art, culture really help define who we are.
Thank you.
Lisa?
Yeah, I was actually some of what Jeff was saying and what Kristen was saying, and to educate it's definitely a goal. But what I had written down was to work towards facilitating and or guiding community leaders with empowering their community through public art. And because we are putting a lot of emphasis on placemaking. And when I was looking through and kind of doing some research, I came across a great resource from the NEA, the National Endowments of Arts. And it was a 220-page how to do creative placemaking. And it has so much information, and I haven't been able to read all 220 pages yet. And I know that Tara has read most of it when I discussed it with her just real briefly. And it just talks about reimagining vacant spaces through temporary art projects, and it gives you a better understanding on why and how much of the work needs to be community driven to actually really just make a huge difference within within our population, within our community, within the neighborhood. So I still need to do a lot more reading through it, but there's just a lot of information that I really think that will be helpful for all of us. So that's my stance.
Lisa, I'm familiar with that NEA creative placemaking document as well. And yeah, it's pretty powerful.
Monica, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, that article sounds really wonderful to dig into, but I was just thinking, Santa Rosa, there have been critiques of Santa Rosa not having an identity, not being a distinctive place, and I feel like if we just keep making more and more art and get more and more projects going, that identity will grow and emerge. And it's kind of like an artist in their studio worrying about their style or whatever. Just make more work, just do more to get and it'll work out anyway. So I was just thinking of that. I wanted to share that thought.
Any other reflections on the role or purpose of this group? I'm asked Jeannie if she could perhaps pull the goals list back up as a reference point. Because what we want you to do is continue to think in terms of your scope relative to this desired future and discrete goals that we're workshopping today. And it might be constructive too to think about, is there a particular goal that is just low-hanging fruit? It's the most obvious in relation to the role of the committee. We do that thing. That is on us. And conversely, there might be a goal that is outside of scope. And not that it's not important, but it might be a responsibility of someone outside of the committee or beyond the scope of at least the immediate group of the APPC. So curious what your reaction is to your role vis-a-vis the goals here.
Like Nathan, you have your hand up? You're muted though. Unmute yourself, Nathan.
Yeah, I mostly think about my role in terms of a kind of personal project that I'm already engaged in. that has to do with building linkages between regional history and cultural practices, local artists, and international practitioners. I feel like the mission of the APBC probably has a lot to do with creating opportunities for new practitioners and audiences within the communities who, are often historically marginalized or are not provided with opportunities to engage with the resources that may be available. And I think the committee should be asking fundamental questions about what art actually is and what it can be and do in relation to community and how it might model broader questions about civic engagement.
I second that. Less pretty art.
I echo also what Nathan just had to say.
What about it specifically resonated with you two?
Well, I don't know. I feel like, yes, I'm open. I was waiting, but I feel like, we're so safe and we really don't do a good job of, this is not what's the good things, but that we need to do a better job of bringing in more diverse art to Santa Rosa, whether it's and it's incumbent upon the committee members to go out and find those people and not just rely on the same people submitting proposals over and over again. But try and widen the net that we cast to see if we can bring in some of those communities that are underrepresented in Santa Rosa.
Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. What Melanie just said too. We just can't say, hi, we're here, we want to support you. We actually have to go out there because there's so many communities don't even know that we exist. They don't know what we have. They don't know what we can offer. And we need to find out what we can offer and how we can support these communities and how we can bring out all the things, because there's probably so much creativity there, but they have never been able to just give them that open door to explore and to be able to create. And I just think we need to, as this committee, just need to go out there and guide and help and offer. That's the least we can do.
Perfect. Thank you. Any final comments before we transition to our closing?
Nina?
So this relates to goal number 3. And I don't know if it sounds crazy to put this in here, but bear with me. It says increase awareness and familiarity. And I would like to say, and excitement, or I think my biggest disappointment with being involved with Art in Public Places for 8 years is that we've had in 8 years probably a handful of meetings where people really come and give input. And it's only been when there have been projects that have been somewhat controversial. And I can name those: the Dragon Mural, Coffee Park, Railroad Square, and with the Public Art Master Plan, when it went to the City Council, there was really not so much participation of the community at large. But I just wish more people would get involved on a regular basis when it's not because they don't like what we might do on approving a certain project. Just get more people involved and get some excitement going here. Some real robust interaction.
That's a great way of punctuating the conversation on what's possible. So thank you. Jeannie, turning it back over to you.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you all for all of your incredible input and insight. I'm over here taking furious notes. But I wanted to close with a quick reflection, and please share if you'd like to. 2 years from now, okay, we're gonna take out the crystal ball here and think about the public art program and the Art in Public Places Committee. 2 years from now, what do you hope is true about public art in Santa Rosa? I'll give you a second to think about that. And then share, if a few of you would like to share what that vision looks like for you. Not everybody at once here. Jeff.
Yep. So I can't help but reflect on some of the comments that happened in the last session right before we got to this. But I would like to think in a couple of years that we are in the process of planning for or implementing projects that will have a unique presence and that will help define a sense of place for Santa Rosa. And actually thinking about Nathan's comments and a couple of others, that we're, let's say, not playing it safe, and that there is a level of community engagement that perhaps is more about education and bringing people through the process, so that if there's a project that is a bit more challenging, and I hope we do have challenging projects, that people will get behind those projects. And I don't think we should shy away from controversy. I think it's more about the process through which people can be engaged and understand why something might be of value, even if it's not safe and pretty.
Thanks, Jeff. Anyone else want to share?
I would like to just dovetail off of Jeff's comment about going back to what is the value, and really thinking about going back to these tenets and in the vision statement, what type of themes could we draw out from that, of, you know, things that are of value, and hopefully keeping that in mind as we go forward with projects that may or may not be controversial or shaping of our community. But I think back to value, and I think that's a promising word and something to keep in mind as we're going through a strategic planning process.
Absolutely. Those are great words to end on. Tara, did you want to quickly just close us out? Maybe talk a little bit about the next steps with this committee in terms of the adoption process.
Yeah, thank you, Jeannie. Thank you all for your great insights and thoughts on all of this. Our goal is to have a plan, a final strategic plan, sometime by the new year, around the new year, in January. We've been delayed many times with a variety of things, including disasters and whatnot. So we may, you never know what's going to happen next, but that was our hope, was to have something in January. At that time, we would be bringing, or shortly thereafter, we would be bringing a draft to the committee, or I should say the final draft to the committee for adoption would be the ultimate final involvement of this group. This is a strategic plan. It's not a policy document, so the city council does not need to adopt or approve it. But I would like to also recommend that we take a presentation to the city council to let them know what this is and what our goals and vision and mission are. I think that would be helpful for the awareness level. So those would be the next things coming up for this actual document, this final strategic plan. We will provide you with updates going forward if the timeline changes or there are additional steps in between that come up.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.